Hello again, and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Monday, the 4th of December. I'm Andrew Wilson, and this is Scotland at 7. This evening, I have the latest daily update from Ukraine on day 649 of the illegal Russian war of aggression and imperial ambition. Then I'll have the headlines for you from Israel and Gaza, and then I'll take a look at the rest of today's headlines from Scotland and around the world. Ukraine has launched an inquiry into what it said was an execution by Russian forces of two unarmed Ukrainian soldiers who were surrendering. Video shows the Ukrainian soldiers' last moments as they emerged from their trench near the town of Avdiivka. One raised his arms in the air before they were both shot at close range. Russia's military command began a major offensive against Avdiivka in October and has been trying to break through for nearly 2 months to encircle the town. There has so far been no breakthrough, despite huge losses of infantry and armoured vehicles. The Belarusian leader, Alexander Lukashenko, hailed his country's reliable friendship with China today as he held talks with counterpart Xi Jinping on his second visit to Beijing this year. Lukashenko arrived in China on Sunday for a visit expected to last at least 2 days. Lukashenko last came to China in February, a trip that drew scrutiny given Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky reported intense battles at dozens of frontline locations, with the most severe in the eastern towns of Mariinka, Avdiivka and Bakhmut, but also reported heavy fighting in Kharkiv and in the south. Brutal shelling rained down on buildings, streets, or hospitals in Kherson, he said, and offered condolences to families of those killed, noting that Kherson region alone had suffered 20 shelling incidents in 1 day. Ukraine's Air Force has said that Russia launched 23 drones and a cruise missile against Ukraine overnight, adding that its air defence systems destroyed 18 of the drones and the missile before they reached their targets. The Air Force said anti-aircraft defences were deployed in at least 9 regions of Ukraine. Ukraine said at least 3 people were killed and 4 injured in the latest Russian shelling. In Donetsk, the Prosecutor General's office said a 69-year-old woman was killed on the spot and a 70-year-old woman suffered gunshot wounds in the town of Krostantinivka. In Kherson region, shelling in the village of Sadovy killed a 78-year-old man. Kherson region officials said on Sunday that their air defences downed 10 Russian drones. The UK's Foreign Secretary, David Cameron, will travel to Washington, D.C. on Wednesday in his first visit to the US since taking up the position last month. Cameron will meet US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, among other officials, and will take part in discussions focusing on supporting Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression, a UK Foreign Office statement said. And Ukraine and Poland will open an additional border crossing for empty trucks today in order to open up a much-needed route for Kyiv, with some crossings blocked by weeks of protests by Polish drivers, Ukrainian authorities said yesterday. Gaza's health ministry has issued new casualty figures, saying that 15,899 Palestinians have been killed by Israel's military campaign in the Gaza Strip since the 7th of October. The ministry said that 70% of those who have been killed are women and children. The number of deaths is likely undercounted as the collapse of the healthcare system in Gaza has made it difficult for statistics to be gathered, and there are more than 6,000 Palestinians considered missing within the territory. Mariana Spoljaric-Egger, the head of the International Committee of the Red Cross, has described the suffering in Gaza as intolerable while visiting the territory. She said, "The level of human suffering is intolerable. It is unacceptable that civilians have no safe place to go in Gaza." In videos posted on Twitter, UNICEF spokesperson James Elder reported another intense evening of attacks here in Khan Yunis late on Sunday. "It was the worst bombardment of the war right now in southern Gaza," he said. "I feel like I am running out of ways to describe the horrors hitting children here," he said. "I feel like I'm almost failing in my ability to convey the endless killing of children here." Israel's military has issued a situational update in which it claims that ground troops are continuing to operate in the Gaza Strip in parallel to Israeli Air Force strikes on approximately 200 Hamas terror targets. Dozens of Israeli tanks have entered the southern part of the Gaza Strip near Khan Yunis today, witnesses have told AFP. Armoured personnel carriers and bulldozers were also seen. The telecoms company Paltel has said that Gaza is facing a communications blackout, with all telecom services, landline, cellular and internet in Gaza City and North Gaza Strip lost due to the disconnection of main elements of their network. 6 hostages from Thailand, kidnapped and held for weeks in the Gaza Strip by Hamas, will arrive back in the kingdom earlier today. Israel believes that Hamas still holds about 137 people hostage in Gaza. Al Jazeera has reported that at least 60 Palestinians were arrested in the occupied West Bank overnight, with Israeli forces carrying out raids in the cities of Qalqilia, Jericho, Jenin and Tulkarem. At least 30 armoured vehicles were deployed in Jenin following a dawn raid, the broadcaster reported. In the Netherlands, a court hearing to challenge the export to Israel of fighter jet parts which could be used in attacks in Gaza has begun. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has said that Benjamin Netanyahu will eventually be tried as a war criminal over Israel's ongoing offensive in Gaza. And Netanyahu has invited Argentina's president-elect Javier Milei to Israel and thanked him for his stated intention to move the Argentinian embassy to Jerusalem. The COP28 president, Sultan Al-Jaber, has said that he has been misrepresented by reports that he had claimed there was no science behind demands for phase-out of fossil fuels, and gave a strong defense of his background and belief in the science. Al-Jaber said he has incredible respect for Mary Robinson after he was accused of being arrogant towards the former Irish president when he said there was no scientific need to phase out fossil fuels, adding, "I was very honoured to receive her invitation to speak in a discussion around climate and gender." On the media reporting of his comments, he said, "Let's just clarify where I stand on the science. I honestly think there is some confusion out there and misrepresentation. Let me introduce myself to you. I'm an engineer by background. It's the science and my respect for the science and my conviction for the science and the passion for the science that have allowed me to progress in my career." He said he has supplemented this with business and economic skills to progress in his career. He added, "The phase down and phase out of fossil fuels is essential. It needs to be orderly, fair, just and responsible." Al-Jaber accused those who had reported his comments on phasing out fossil fuels of undermining his message. "Allow me to say I am quite surprised at the constant attempt to undermine this message," he said. Other developments at COP28 today include water aid called for rich countries to do more to meet this year's target of $300 million for the Climate Adaptation Fund. More than 1,000 climate scientists called for mass collective action to avert climate breakdown, and representatives of small island states said they would continue to demand a phase-out of fossil fuels and would hold Sultan Al-Jaber to account for this. At a panel discussion today, the First Minister Hamza Yusuf outlined the ways in which international trade and technology could work together for a just climate transition. The First Minister also met the UAE Minister for Environment and Climate Change, Mariam Al-Makhairi, to discuss their aims for COP28 and the importance of international cooperation on climate change. The First Minister also met the Deputy Prime Minister of Spain, Teresa Ribera, in Dubai today to discuss the close ties between Scotland and Spain on key areas of cooperation, such as culture and the just transition, and the need to tackle the climate emergency. The Guardian is reporting today that the UK's most hazardous nuclear site, Sellafield, has been hacked into by cyber groups closely linked to Russia and China. The report says that the disclosure of the security breach and its potential effects have been consistently covered up by senior staff at the vast nuclear waste and decommissioning site. According to the report, Authorities do not know exactly when the IT systems were first compromised, but sources said breaches were first detected as far back as 2015, when experts realised that malware programs that can lurk and can be used to spy or attack systems had been embedded in Sellafield's computer networks. As yet, it is not known if the malware has been eradicated. It may mean some of Sellafield's most sensitive activities, such as moving radioactive waste, monitoring for leaks of dangerous material, and checking for fires, have been compromised. The report suggests it is likely foreign hackers who have accessed the highest echelons of confidential material at the sprawling 6 square kilometre site on the Cumbrian coast, which is one of the most hazardous nuclear facilities in the world. The full extent of any data loss and any ongoing risks to systems was made harder to quantify by Sellafield's failure to alert nuclear regulators for several years, sources said. The revelations have emerged in Nuclear Leaks, a year-long investigation by The Guardian into cyber hacking, radioactive contamination, and toxic workplace culture at Sellafield. The site, which is guarded by armed police, has the largest store of plutonium on the planet. It has been described as a sprawling rubbish dump for nuclear waste from weapons programs and decades of atomic power generation. It also holds emergency planning documents to be used should the UK come under foreign attack or face disaster. Originally known as Windscale, when it was built more than 70 years ago, and to make plutonium for nuclear weapons during the Cold War, it changed its name to Sellafield following a major leak of contaminated radioactive materials from the site. As well as processing radioactive waste produced in the UK, it also imports radioactive waste from other countries, including Italy and Sweden. According to The Guardian, Sellafield, which employs more than 11,000 staff, was placed into a form of special measures last year for consistent failings on cybersecurity, according to sources at the Office for Nuclear Regulation, the ONR, and the security services. The ONR is believed to be preparing to prosecute individuals there for cyber failings. The ONR confirmed Sellafield is failing to meet its cyber standards, but declined to comment on the breaches or claims of a cover-up. The problem of insecure servers at Sellafield involves highly sensitive data that could be exploited by Britain's enemies. Sellafield's server network was characterised by the official as fundamentally insecure. The scale of the problem was only discovered when staff at an external site found that they could access Sellafield's servers and reported it to the ONR, according to an insider at the Watchdog. Other concerns include external contractors being able to plug memory sticks into the system while unsupervised. The ONR said it had found cybersecurity shortfalls during its inspections and noted that it had taken enforcement action as a result. The ONR was so concerned by the fact the external sites could access Sellafield's servers and the apparent cover-up by staff that it interviewed the teams at Sellafield under caution. In one highly embarrassing incident last July, login details and passwords for secure IT systems were inadvertently broadcast on national TV by the BBC One Nature series Countryfile, after its crews were invited into the secure site for a piece on rural communities and the nuclear industry. Reuters is reporting that Global Infrastructure Partners, GIP, the majority owner of Edinburgh Airport, is putting it up for sale. GIP is looking to offload its majority stake, according to several sources. The airport value is estimated to be about €2.5 billion. The sale should be completed before the end of this year, although as yet there is no confirmation on whether GIP is in talks with a specific buyer. Reuters are also reporting that Aberdeen, Glasgow and Southampton airports could also be sold. The three airports are operated by AGS Airports, which is jointly owned by Macquarie and Ferrovial. The SNP has said that Sir Keir Starmer's values are far, far removed from Scotland's values after the Labour leader confirmed that a Labour government would implement more austerity-driven policies. In a speech to the Resolution Foundation today, the Labour leader said that he will not turn on the spending taps if his party wins the next general election. And that's despite 13 years of Tory austerity policies which have been blamed for fueling the cost of living crisis. In the last 2 days, Sir Keir Starmer has praised former Tory Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher for delivering meaningful change to the UK, claimed that the UK has failed to realise the possibilities of Brexit, and has committed to continuing austerity. Commenting, the SNP's Westminster leader, Stephen Flynn MP, said, "In the last 2 days, Sir Keir Starmer has not only celebrated Thatcher's damaging legacy, he is now promoting a Thatcherite future. Once again, it is clear that his values are far, far removed from Scotland's values, and that only with independence can Scotland be the fairer, wealthier nation we all want to see." In a week where he praised Margaret Thatcher, a Prime Minister who devastated the lives of tens of thousands of Scots, and Brexit, a Tory-driven obsession which has wreaked havoc on businesses and households, it's clear that Sir Keir Starmer and Labour's values do not align with Scotland. Austerity, Brexit and Margaret Thatcher. These are the values that motivate Westminster politicians like Sir Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak, and Scotland wants none of it. He went on, "The Tories and Labour rejected our calls for a £400 energy rebate, for mortgage interest tax relief and for action on food prices. A perfect demonstration of why Scotland urgently needs the power to grow the economy and boost household incomes." Liz Cheney, whose opposition to Donald Trump's presidency alienated her from her fellow Republicans, has said she would prefer Democrats to win the 2024 elections over members of her own party because she fears the US is sleepwalking into dictatorship. In an interview with CBS yesterday, Cheney suggested a Republican congressional majority that would be subservient to another Trump White House presented a tangible threat to American democracy. "I believe very strongly in these principles and ideals that have defined the Republican Party, but the Republican Party of today has made a choice, and they haven't chosen the Constitution," the former Wyoming Congresswoman said when asked if she was rooting for Democratic victories in the 2024 election cycle. "And so I do think it presents a threat if the Republicans are in the majority in January 2025, she said. She went on to say that the US was sort of sleepwalking into dictatorship, with Trump emerging as the clear favourite for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, notwithstanding the fact that he faces more than 90 criminal charges, including some for attempting to overturn his defeat in the 2020 election against his Democratic rival Joe Biden. Polls also suggest it would be a competitive race if Biden is rematched with Trump, who's been running on promises to use federal authorities to crush his enemies and to dramatically expand the immigration crackdown that his White House oversaw after his 2016 victory. Cheney served as the vice chairwoman of the US House Committee, which investigated the deadly Capitol attack staged by Trump supporters on the 6th of January 2021 in a desperate but failed attempt to prevent the certification of Biden's victory in the election weeks earlier. Cheney and her colleagues recommended that the Justice Department file criminal charges against Trump in connection with the Capitol attack, pretending the 4 indictments obtained against the former president this year. In her remarks yesterday, Cheney asserted that the Republican US House Speaker Mike Johnson was absolutely a collaborator in Trump's attempt to remain in office after his 2020 defeat. Cheney said, "Johnson can't be the US House Speaker when the new Congress takes its oath of office in early January 2025 and begins grappling with certifying the outcome of a presidential election the previous fall." A partnership between 3 of Scotland's leading universities has been awarded a £3 million grant by Wellcome. The grant will support the development and testing of a new model which enhances positive research cultures for people and projects. The 2-year initiative, led by the Universities of Glasgow, Edinburgh and St Andrews, will gather best practice from across the 3 institutions, amplifying and learning from communities where positive research culture flourishes. The project will develop a framework for collegial research leadership, funding new research leaders to accelerate change through an ambitious programme. Under the plan, funding opportunities will be specifically aimed at diversifying and supporting new research leaders who embrace collegiate approaches. A new community knowledge hub will support and develop our new leaders and identify the coherence and common issues across their diverse projects through a common evaluation strategy. The collaboration has been funded by Wellcome through its Institutional Funding for Research Culture programme and is the only multi-partner project to receive this backing. Professor Chris Pearce, the Vice Principal for Research and Knowledge Exchange at the University of Glasgow, said, "This project demonstrates our ongoing commitment to the development of an inclusive research culture at the University of Glasgow and across the sector." Professor Christina Boswell, Vice Principal for Research and Enterprise, said, "This exciting collaboration will enable us to nurture and support research leadership across the University of Edinburgh." And Professor Tom Brown, the Vice Principal Research Collections and Innovation, commented, "We at St Andrews are very excited to be taking this forward in collaboration with partner universities, and we look forward to working with the whole research ecosystem across our schools and professional services." The UK's association to the world-leading Horizon and Copernicus programmes has been officially sealed in Brussels. The deal, which helps restore some of the UK's participation in international research programmes, which was lost due to Brexit, will create and support thousands of new jobs and help develop the next generation of research talent. Scottish researchers have continued to work with EU partners on key global challenges, including tidal energy, sustainable ocean management, preventing Alzheimer's disease, developing technologies to support space satellites, and designing antibodies to help diagnose and treat COVID-19. In Horizon Europe's predecessor, Horizon 2020, Scotland collaborated with over 150 countries and secured around 11% of the UK's overall funding, with only 8% of the population share. The Scottish Government Minister for Higher Education, Graham Day, has welcomed the ratification of the agreement for UK participation in EU programmes Horizon Europe and Copernicus. Mr Day said, "The Scottish Government has always believed full association to the Horizon Europe programme was the best outcome for Scotland in the circumstances, and we have continued to work with our EU partners to tackle challenges in areas of mutual interest, despite the impact of Brexit causing needless delays and uncertainty to the research and innovation sector. We welcome this formalisation of the agreement for association to EU programmes Horizon Europe and Copernicus. Horizon Europe is globally unparalleled, and Scotland has benefited greatly from the scope, scale and prestige of this €95.5 billion European Research and Innovation Framework programme. The full benefits for Scotland can only be realised by EU membership, as set out in our Building a New Scotland EU paper, in conjunction with the other advantages such as freedom of movement for citizens. However, there is an opportunity to maximise our participation in Horizon Europe and to continue to work with the research and innovation sector in Scotland and beyond to reinforce our valuable relationships. A new paper to be launched on Wednesday says that an independent Scotland would have the opportunity to create a new approach to social security that could transform lives and ensure a decent standard of living for all. The 9th paper in the Building a New Scotland series, Social Security in an Independent Scotland, will outline the progress the Scottish Government has already made with limited powers and demonstrate how an independent Scotland could go even further. The Social Justice Secretary, Shirley-Ann Somerville, said, "The Scottish Parliament has shown how Scotland can make different choices and deliver a fairer system with more positive outcomes. Independence would provide us with an opportunity to go further and transform the way benefits are delivered in this country. With independence, we could ensure everyone has a decent standard of living and provide a strong safety net people could turn to when times are financially tough. Currently, the UK system fails to provide an adequate level of support for those who need it. As a result, the UK has higher poverty rates than European nations that are comparable to Scotland. With limited powers, the Scottish Government has introduced transformative policies such as the Scottish Child Payment, which is estimated to lift 50,000 children out of relative poverty in 2023-24. However, It is only with the full powers of independence that we could use the full fiscal and economic levers to tackle poverty in Scotland. And that is all that we have for you this evening. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland depends on the generosity of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs and culture. Please help us to continue to make these programmes, to continue to develop the station and to make new programmes for you. Our programmes will always be free to view, but if you can afford £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. Our need to reach our £30,000 target to continue to pay our bills is still pressing. Due to the generosity of our supporters, we have raised nearly £21,000. However, our need to raise the remaining £9,000 is now really urgent. To everyone who has donated, and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment as a Broadcasting Scotland supporter, thank you very much. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way that helps our work, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. You can find us on X Twitter and Blue Sky and Mastodon at Broadcast Scot, so please like and retweet us there, and you can also find us on Facebook by searching for Broadcasting Scotland. When you're watching us on YouTube, it would be great if you would like and subscribe to Broadcasting Scotland on that platform. We will be back tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock sharp for the next edition of Scotland at 7, so please come and join us then. On this day in 1745, Charles Edward Stuart and the Jacobite army reached Derby. In London, only 150 miles away, there was total panic, and it was reported that George II was preparing to flee. It all went a bit downhill after that, or maybe uphill. Thank you to everyone who's been watching this evening. Please look after yourselves and have a very peaceful evening. Bye-bye.